A lot of black men are dangerous, violent, and they can't take a goddamn no.
Caucasian men, sex was never brought up. They just wanted to just love on me.
When I talk to my sisters about their experience dating black men, the worst pain, the worst experience that they had is when they dated black men.
Pull up in the cut, hit a pop. That's why I'm moving like Tupac.
This is Big Bad's Life with another informative video.
Where he's going. Only problem is, I won't be able to see it.
This morning, 2 former Mississippi Sheriff's deputies sentenced for their role in the brutal and racially motivated torture of 2 black men.
Recently, there was a clip that went ultra viral.
A night meant for celebration turned into a horrific scene of violence when 45-year-old Douglas Barnes was arrested for the murder of 17-year-old Samantha McCaffrey at her high school prom.
I go to the Livonia, whatever, Facebook page, their police department's Facebook page. Nothing. I could not literally find anything. That's a fake story.
A black man, 45 years old, who seeks revenge for his son's killing by an officer named McCaffrey. This was a TikTok video that was found out to be fraudulent, that was found out to be fake. But outside of this video, it prompted some questions and it prompted some nervousness. And I want to kind of bring them all together, because recently there's been a string of different things that's been happening in the society, and I want to put it all together. Let's look at this video and I'll come back to it.
Smith gathered in a Pierce County courtroom this afternoon to learn the fate of her murderer, 29-year-old Army Ranger Specialist Patrick Byrne. Byrne pleaded guilty to first-degree murder for beating and choking Smith to death in July of 2021. Smith was working as a security guard at a downtown building along 9th Street. She was only on the job for 2 days.
Where's the outrage from all my sisters, all my melanated sisters? Where's the outrage for when black women are killed by those who are non-melanated, who are non-black? Where's all this outrage at? Furthermore, when you link the two together, you see that black men along with black women are victimized in this situation.
In January of last year, the Goon Squad bursting into this home without a warrant after a white neighbor reported several black males for suspicious behavior. Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker placed under arrest in their own home without any evidence of a crime. Prosecutors say the officers then repeatedly tased the 2 men, calling them racial slurs, beating and even sexually assaulting them over the course of 90 minutes. Deputy Elward shooting Jenkins in the mouth. And as he lay there bleeding, investigators say the 6 officers conspired to cover up their actions, even planting a gun at the scene and pretending to seize drugs from the victims, leading to them being falsely charged.
So not only are we victims, we're victimized, we're unjustifiably harmed, we're set up, and we're even demonized by the media. And most times, these politicians who are our own and our women sometimes pile on.
Can you imagine the abject terror those 2 victims must have felt?
Tuesday, Elward apologizing to the victims.
And for whatever reason, we always follow this plantation ritual of forgive, forgive, forgive. Well, no more forgiving. We want justice. And this story is very important. The fake story, that is.
I feel like you did exactly what you did.
Which brings us to this. The type of black men that didn't forgive. The type of black men that took matters into their own hand. And this is what they're truly afraid of. See, the story was just a story. It was fake. And it was deemed as fake. But the true story is, how can we stop that mindset? Because they're going to continue to do what they do best. As you can see from the sister that got killed, choked out to death, and the guy only receiving a minimum of 20 years.
In the end, Byrne was sentenced to 20 years in prison, the lowest standard amount for the charge of first-degree murder.
As well as the 6 officers, including the officers that shot the one brother in the mouth.
Deputy Hunter Elward getting 20 years. Lieutenant Jeffrey Middleton sentenced to 17.5 years. There are 2 of 6 officers who have pleaded guilty to federal felony charges.
But what truly happens when black men take justice and matters into their own hands? Well, let me share this story with you as a reminder that the time has came the time will come and it will be more situations like this. The fake story was just a reminder that it's on the way. So be careful about the type of information you put out there, because this is indeed a true story of seeked justice.
Southern California was paralyzed by fear.
I think all law enforcement felt like we were targets.
4 people gunned down, a bloody 9-day manhunt ending in flames. In the suspect's crosshairs, one of the nation's elite police departments, the LAPD.
From that point on, it was fast and furious.
Dorner. Christopher was born in New York and grew up in Southern California. Christopher was the only African-American student in his school from 1st grade to 7th grade.
So it's safe to say that Christopher Dorner knew racism firsthand. And of course, he knew this country by serving in the military.
When he got into fights due to his race. When he was a teenager, Christopher decided his calling was to become a police officer, and he joined a youth program offered by the police department in La Palma, Orange County.
But Chris was faced with challenges of bringing the term law enforcement to a community he loved and appreciated. Soon, when he joined the force, he found out that race would play a huge part in the injustices. As soon, he found himself on the outside looking in, having to fight for the very job that he loved.
While he was a naval reservist, he joined up with the LAPD Open Up, entering the police academy in 2005. Neighbors of Christopher described him as admired, well-liked, and a man who usually kept to himself. He had been married, no kids. He divorced in 2007. Christopher, he was someone who made friends just effortlessly.
So what would make Chris snap like this? Like all black people know, in this country, all it takes is for you to be around a group of WS, and that's all it takes. It's like igniting a match. Sooner or later, it's gonna blow. And for Chris, it blew, and it blew fast. Where he was gonna have his final shootout. Rather than shoot it out with him, it was said law enforcement set the cabin ablaze with him in it. And that's how Dorner perished. Dorner was a fighter of justice for his people. Dorner also sent a 19-page and a CD to the news broadcast about his exploits and why he was doing what he was doing. His beef with LAPD and why he had went on his rampage because of the injustices that he's seen within the department. And of course, following the O.J. Simpson trial and other things that we've learned about LAPD and their gang rituals, we've come to understand what LAPD really is and what they have really been to the black community. And last but not least, Michael Johnson, who had a big situation that happened in Dallas during the protests. And his story was very, very different. Unlike a lot of mass shootings or mass situations, Michael Johnson was eventually blown up by a robot, the first of its kind. Nowhere in the history of the United States have anyone on the soil of any race has been targeted in such a way.
Michael Johnson parked his black SUV on Lamar Street in front of El Centro College. The hazard lights were still flashing. He put on a tan body armor vest and headed south towards Main Street. At 8:58 p.m., as demonstrators made their way east on Main Street, Johnson fired his automatic or semi-automatic rifle into a police car and at Dallas police officers who were walking among the protesters. His bullets struck and killed Senior Corporal Lauren Ahrens, Officer Michael Kroll, and Officer Patrick Zamarripa. 3 Dallas officers, Gretchen Rocha, Ivan Saldana, and Jorge Barrientos, and a civilian, Jatania Taylor, were also injured.
Michael Johnson, when he was held up, was having a conversation with a negotiating officer who was a young black brother. And they both had a conversation to kind of like talk each other down. But I'm gonna let you hear some of that conversation and let you see what side of the law this guy was on and what side of the law this guy was on, Michael Johnson. Let's get to it.
Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Kwame, let's keep talking. Let's keep everybody here. The talking is over. It's time for revolution, brothers.
I think he was angry, and he felt powerless, I think. And that's why I think he took the rifle, took it upon himself to attack us, because he felt powerless and he wanted to die to show, because he says he's doing this for his people. And that's what I was saying. And I think the hook that I had with him was that I was an African-American male, because he told me, he asked me, if you're my brother, you should turn your weapon on those next to you.
You are my brother, turn your weapon on those behind you. You know what? Play the long game. Play the long game. Stay on your team. A year later, you're out to get kill them all. Kill them all at the sequel. Kill them all at the wake.
I was blown away. I was blown away by that, because we all looked at each other. We just looked at each other like, who is this guy?
And that we he was talking about was his white counterparts, his co-workers, his officers on duty. The blue, the back in the blue. The same ones who murdered Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, and so many others. And this is the conflict that we have as black men in this country. You're either gonna stand for something or you're gonna fall for anything. So when Michael Johnson was telling him, you need to play the long game in terms of being on our side, clearly this brother chose a side, and we can see what side he chose. He's back in the blue. He doesn't wear this.
I told you, X, I got control over here. I'm trying to make you understand. I got control.
I know that sound.
X, I'm not you, man. I hadn't you in 45 minutes. Not you yet.
Once I looked at him, I was thinking that this is just a guy. This is not a monster. This is just a man. It's just a guy. You know, he has a family, probably has a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. In my mind, this guy was a person to be feared for 4 hours. But now he's just a guy.
30 a.m. July 8th, when Dallas Police Chief David Brown ordered 2 officers to arm a remote control robot with C4. The officer sent the robot down a separate narrow hallway toward Johnson. The C4 was detonated and the explosion killed Johnson. 2 handguns and what appears to be a Saiga IZ-240, also called an AK-74, were found with his body.
So to wrap this up, we covered a young lady that had a TikTok video that went mega viral. Almost 55, 65 million people watched it. Of vengeance. And of course, we've seen Michael Johnson and Chris Dorner, who carried out these actions. And as we see today, recently, within the last few days, a black woman was murdered at the hands of someone that was in the military, a white guy, and he only got 20 years. And 6 officers, which 2 of those officers only got 20 and 17 years. So these men are be eligible. Me, myself, I had a non-threatening, non-killing case, and I was sentenced to more than those guys put together. So, to make a long story short, we get suffered with injustices, even at the hands of those who's supposed to protect and serve us. So at the end of the day, you decide on who's a hero and who's a villain, who's a terrorist and who's helping the people. Because at the end of the day, it's your people you gotta look at in the face. And in the words of Malcolm, I'll leave you with this.
Kind. Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk. Stop sweet talking it. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.